The Honda XR650R motorcycle was purpose-built for the Baja races, where it dominated and proved to be one of the most durable and competitive desert enduro motorcycles of all time. The only Honda XR with liquid cooling. One of the challenges with this model was weight. In the process of shaving weight, Honda looked to items like the skid plate and other add-ons. As a result, the skid plate on the XR650R Honda needs improvement. Built of plastic, the original equipment skid plate can become easily damaged. And to improve on that, we turned to TCI products for a replacement skid plate. Apparent here, the original equipment skid plate is plastic and vulnerable to damage. Note the exceptional quality of the TCI skid plate. Still light in weight, this alloy plate is extremely strong with brackets that will secure side engine guards to the skid plate. These side engine guards are also extremely well built and will offer the protection that Honda neglected in the original equipment design. These cases will be thoroughly protected by these rugged and durable engine side guards. TCI recommends putting the side guards on the plate before installing the plate. All hardware is furnished and is high grade. This Honda XR650R will see a lot of backcountry use and follows the 100 miles from nowhere rule. 100 miles from nowhere, you want to protect this engine from any damage off pavement that could leave you stranded 100 miles from nowhere. With spacers that go between the plate and the frame. You use the existing frame threaded holes, and this simplifies the installation. This intelligently designed skid plate assembly with engine side guards uses elongated slots that make for a perfect fit once the assembly is installed. It makes sense to trial fit the engine guard. We did that by pulling the brackets into position, making sure you have clearance at the exhaust pipe and also at the coolant recovery tank. This bolt and this bolt lightly secured. We can drop the plate now and tighten all three bolts on the left side. The right side is not an issue. The left side, it's difficult to access this bolt once the entire plate is in position. Pre-assembling this side engine guard will save time. This middle bolt is the most difficult one to access, so we'll tighten that now. We can come through from the opposite side of the skid plate with an extension and ratchet. Don't put too much weight on all of this. Those two bolts that are securing the plate at the front are only 6mm stud size. It may pay to support the back end of the skid plate while you do this. Make sure these other two bolts are secure before trial fitting the assembly one more time. This nut can be reached over the back side of the exhaust while the bolt is tightened.
At this point, just snug this hardware. Do not tighten it fully.
Take the time to make sure that this bracket and bolt are in position, and that when the skid plate is firmly in place, you have clearance at the coolant recovery tank and the exhaust pipe as well. After trial locating the right side engine guard, we very carefully remove the entire skid plate. Be cautious with these aluminum threads on the frame. Now we can tighten all of the hardware, making sure it's secure. For the final fit, we start at the back of the plate as recommended in the installation instructions. Put the spacers in place, finger tighten the screws. The front, the top two bolts with the brackets that fit to the front of the mounting on the frame are loose, and we will use a jack not to put weight on the skid plate, but rather to lift it up into position. Make sure that the screws at the back are reasonably secure so that enough threads are penetrating the aluminum threads in the frame that you won't damage the threads in the frame.
Run the screws up at this point. Don't make them tight, but thread them up far enough that they're protecting the threads in the frame. Position your jack and center up your brackets.
These screws turn readily. There's no pressure on the threads. The pressure is on the plate. The holes are aligned perfectly. At this point, I can pull this over slightly to get the clearance we want between the pipe and the plastic reservoir and make the final tightening on these two screws. Be careful not to stress the threads in the frame. They're aluminum. Make sure that the weight is off and the holes are centered in the slots. so that the screws will literally start with your fingertips. Final tightening with the plate centered. Snug these two screws up. The plate centered properly and the screws snug. I can tighten the upper bolts, making sure that there's clearance between the pipe and the guard. Check your clearance between the pipe and the plastic reservoir and the engine side guard. We'll do the same on the other side. A footnote, the guard on the right-hand side covers a portion of the plate over the oil filter. If you do need to do an oil filter change, now is the time to do it before you put the skid plate and guards on. In the future, you'll need to remove the right side guard in order to change the oil filter. Upper bolts now tight, front screws secure. Set the final torque on the two rear screws, and you're done. These basic hand tools are all that's required to install the TCI product's skid plate and guards. Instructions, all hardware, the skid plate, engine side guards, and other pieces are included in the kit. Considering the fitment necessary for this kind of installation, the engineering is excellent, and we now have a quality product.
In the skid plate and engine side guard protection for the Honda XR650R.